Welcome to My Forever Home, the podcast. I'm Frances Cosway and I've helped hundreds of people create forever homes. I can't wait to share the journey with you. So let's start. Hi, and welcome to Your Forever Home, the podcast, the Kitchen Design Essentials season. It's with great pleasure that I welcome back Rob Sinclair from E&S Trading. Last episode of the podcast, we actually talked about kitchen appliances and we covered off overall buying criteria, fridges and dishwashers. And today we're going to be talking about the all-important ovens, stove tops and range hoods. And there is lots in store. Rob has been so incredibly generous with his time and his passion just shines through, as I said last week. So Rob is a managing director of E&S Trading. He's been working in the family business since he was 14 with his brother. And E&S Trading started out as a one store in Victoria in Ashburton, and they've now grown to 9. But they have a very strong online presence, and you can tap in to E&S Trading with a live person on the end of the online chat between 9 and 10 p.m, 7 days a week. So I certainly welcome Rob, and I welcome him back again to talk about appliances in the all-important kitchen space and what you need to look out for your stove tops, your range hoods, and your ovens and steam ovens. So welcome again, Rob. All right, so now we're going to go into stove tops, and of course there's 3 main ones, and I know that there's so many different reasons why you'd go for induction versus electric versus gas. Some people are really passionate, for example, to cook on gas. They've always had gas. Like we were saying before, you know, an 80-year-old lady has been, you know, cooking with a gas oven. She's always going to want to cook with that. And I do find that a lot with clients. Gas is, I've always had gas. I like the instant, I can see what's going on with gas. But there's a lot of curiosity around induction, and I think they listen to what their friends are saying and whether they've enjoyed that experience or not. So just walk us through then the differences, the key differences, and why you'd go for one over the other in terms of the way you cook around gas, induction and electric.
So the number one thing I'm going to look for, criteria of any hot plate will always be, I want control, and then I want to have, when I choose a hot plate, gas or electric, gas or induction, no matter at this point. Any hot plate that delivers me more control, whether that's gas or induction, then I get excited. And control means how low are my simmers? And then do I have a real visible range or step of temperature? You know, obviously, when I'm to my biggest burner or my largest induction burners, yes, big fry pans, woks, big pots and so on can come into play. But how much control do I have? What's the range of temperature that I can see, whether it's gas or electric? That's really crucial to me, because again, when we're using a hot plate, the thing that's most crucial is how much space do I have, and what are the pots that I like to use at home, and where will they fit? You know, for me, regularly cooking on a stovetop, it's nothing for me to have potentially last night's chicken roast in a pot, just quietly going away, making a chicken stock. And then we've got tonight's dinner happening in a few different pans, and it might be, you know, there could be some salmon in the oven, and could be just making a little tomato sauce with some capers and some garlic and some chili just to go with the salmon. But what is it you do on your stovetop? You know, that becomes again important. And then where do pots and pans or woks all fit next to each other when you're doing what you want to do? So for me, those things, spatial, the creation of space and being able to fit everything you want to use properly on a cooktop is important. When we get to the definition of gas versus, say, induction, this is where it gets exciting. If I look at control, well, then the reason, and I have to obviously declare my interest in induction, but I'm not ignorant to gas.
That's okay. I can declare my interest in gas.
Yeah, because I have some incredible gas hot plates that deliver some of the finest performance in gas cooktops. So I really love them too. But I suppose, because the final thing, obviously the thing that worries me most, or not worried, that excites me most in a cooking product like a hot plate is the easier to clean. And if I get all the cooking benefits, then I get excited about that being the best.
And I think also then from a design perspective, just adding in the design, even though I am so pro functionality, when you're looking at induction, it is seamless to look at as well. And you're just wiping everything clean in one go. Gas is always fiddly to clean, and generally speaking, you'll never get it to look brand new ever again. Not really. So I know that when people are really after that seamless look, induction is beautiful.
Yeah, they look good. So when I have the better brands of induction and better brands of gas deliver control. So there aren't many brands of gas that deliver control, and I probably should name them, but I think the best control comes from brands like I've got Frankie Professional. It used to be called Highland. Great gas hot plate, made in Australia, a really good quality product that has plenty of space depending on the model I choose, and really good quality brass burners. Some of them are even made in Germany and then part of the assembly here in Australia.
Fantastic.
So great quality gas hot plates would be ASCO. It would be certainly the guys from Frankie Professional, and sadly, because they're not too cheap, the Wolf gas hot plate is one of the most unique gas hot plates in the world, because it's got a double stack burner. There's one burner that is part of the central ring itself. There's a lower ring, and then above that another ring where the actual gas comes out. And there's a separate gas pipe to the lower ring and a separate gas pipe to the top ring.
Wow.
And the lower ring is a smaller gas pipe, and the top ring is a larger gas pipe. So I have really accurate control over this low heat on the low burner, on the lower gas ring, and on the higher gas ring, I've got more gas coming in, giving me a more powerful flame.
I think that's the most frustrating thing as a cook, is not being able to get it low enough. So if you're making jams and things like that, you need to get that so low for so long, and I know it's frustrating when you can't get it low enough.
So Wolf is the only gas hot plate on the marketplace where I can take a piece of paper towel and I can put it on top of the burner whilst it's running, and that paper towel does not burn. It's so low that it won't actually get the paper burning. So control is what I'm after. So I can get really good control in gas. I tend to pay quite a bit for it, and I can get amazing control in induction, and I do pay quite a bit for that technology. Induction does, of course, which I love, which is it's just a piece of glass, and then it's got beneath it the devices that agitate. They create a magnetic field, and the magnetic field agitates the iron molecules in the base of a pot or a fry pan, which of course means if there aren't any iron molecules in the base of your pan, it won't work on an induction hot plate.
Hence why you need saucepans.
Correct. And the easiest check, Frances, is if you have a magnet at home, take the magnet. If it sticks to the bottom of the saucepan, well, it's going to work. If it doesn't stick to the bottom of the saucepan or the fry pan, it won't work.
Top tip.
So, but it's quite regular that people end up having to upgrade their pots or pans, potentially if they go with induction. Why do I like induction? I like induction because I have up to 18 different temperature settings on one hot plate. And the thing about those temperature settings is they're an exact number. They're number 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, right up to 9. So 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3 takes me to 18 settings when I've got 1 through to 9 with half settings in the middle. That means that number 1, after I've mashed my mashed potato, which was boiling away quietly at number 6, simmering away at number 6, you'll hear me talk numbers with induction.
It is all numbers. Yeah.
So my potatoes have been simmering away. Nicola potatoes have been simmering away at number 6. I then turn the induction hot plate down to number 1, and I mash the potatoes still on the stove top. I add my milk, I add my butter, stir it through, and then I put the lid back on, and I leave it on setting number 1 for as long as I want. That potato is now in a keep warm function with the lid on, and I can serve it whenever I'm ready in half an hour to 2 hours time. At no point does the mashed potato burn or brown on the bottom. Number 1 is less than boiling.
You can't do that with gas.
No.
You can't do that with gas. So that's, yeah.
And then number 1, of course, also then if I'm nice and patient, it's fantastic for chocolate. So I can just get the pot warm enough. At no point is it cooking. It's just warm enough. I can actually maintain my hand in the base of the fry pan or the pot on the number 1 setting. So it's sort of about a 60 to 70 degrees Celsius setting, which is incredibly low. And of course, it's even temperature all the way across the bottom. That's the other advantage, not located in one spot where the burner ring is. So I like induction because it gives me super low. And then I've got 18 increments of temperature from low to top. When I get to high heat, it's about twice as fast as gas will be at bringing water to boil. Probably the only deficiency I think induction has, and I'm not a person who uses a wok, but if I wanted to really have the best style of wok cooking, then I would want to have a wok burner, either integrated into my induction hot plate, which ASCO do beautifully, and a few other brands, or I can butt up next to it. I can have a 60 centimetre wide induction plate, and I could butt up next to it a wok burner that was 30 centimetres wide. So again, for me,
you've got the best of both worlds then.
You can, yeah. And I don't have that gas burner because I really don't cook with a wok, and I'm happy to probably get away with a saute pan to do a stir fry because it's so rare that myself and my fiance would do that. But I love the fact that I've got all these settings. So crepes 7, steak number 9, and 9 on with a cast iron pot. Yeah, imagine the Crusade do these pans. They've got the ribs all the way across the top.
Yeah, I've got one of them. I'm a Le Creuset fan. Don't you worry about that.
So they work beautifully on the induction, Frances. So Le Creuset pots, Le Chasseur pots, Staub pots, all of those cast iron type of baking equipment. I can take a Le Creuset baking dish, cast iron baking dish or roasting pan out of my oven. I can put it straight down on the stove top, and then I can have a nice temperature that gives me even heat all the way through the base of the Creuset baking or roasting pan, that I can be doing my gravy in that whilst I'm letting the chicken rest. There's so much flexibility to induction that I really like. But back to the original comparison. So yes, there's a whole bunch of reasons why I can probably show you technically that induction it has some certain prowess, and the cleaning is obviously beautiful, and the way it integrates into the benchtop is great. There's one thing, I've got many chef friends. They find it very difficult to adapt from the gas to induction because they're just so used to watching. What's my temperature? Look at that, done. I'm used to it. And I can't argue against that. That's an innate understanding as to what you're doing with your hot plate, and it's not my job to argue against that. I can show you all the benefits of the induction and why I think it's better, but at the end of the day, if someone's not prepared to change, Frances, it's not our job to try and force them.
And I was going to say, having been in a few holiday houses, I actually suggest this to some of my clients as well, is go and stay in an Airbnb or whatever with an induction, so that you can really use it yourself rather than being in a showroom. I know so you can go into some of the showrooms and try it out, but go to an Airbnb. And I know that's where I've used it. And I thought, this is really good for these things. However, I'd have to really get used to this, this, and this. It's it would go to the boil too quickly, or I couldn't get it down. It was just, you'd have to, I think, spend a bit of time with trial and error, just getting to get used to it, because it is so different to using gas.
It is.
And if you don't want to do that, well, then it probably won't be for you. And like your chef friends, they're so used to doing it a certain way. And you're constantly looking. But I think if you're prepared to adapt, it's probably going to be a good outcome.
If you're prepared to adapt, it is the finest cooking device. I mean, when the house which has got the Miele dishwasher in, which doesn't quite do my wine glasses, I was mentioning it before. It was a Miele gas hot plate, 94.3 centimeters wide, which is a very unusual size. The only induction hot plate, I changed the gas hot plate as soon as I moved in. It was only 3 years old. Yes, it was a Miele. Yes, it was the But I'm so used to induction, changing the Miele out was important. And of course, the Miele induction hot plate fit perfectly. I've really struggled to use gas now because I burn stuff and I'm not used to my temperatures.
So it's all what you get used to.
It is,
so
totally.
If you look at induction then, because there's a big fluctuation in prices for induction, what are you getting when you're spending a bit more, and why would it be worthwhile spending a bit more? What's the difference between, induction? It's not all like for like.
I discovered a hot plate the other day that's only $1,000 for an induction hot plate. It's an entry model.
Aldi sell induction.
Oh, that good old Aldi.
Okay, so, well, that's what I'm saying. Why would you want to spend more? What are you looking for when you're buying induction?
So there's all sorts of criteria. So the cheaper ones may need more ventilation for the actual the induction mechanism to work, which means if it overheats, it might shut down the hot plate. Secondly, you'll find that it might not have enough power for you to use all of the burners at whatever temperature you want. You might have one going at high and the rest of them must be at low because it was too low a power coming in.
Oh, that'd be painful.
So the entry-level Aldi might only be a 10 amp or 15 amp connection. All the better brands of induction hot plates are typically 32 amp connection. It's a whopping amount of power to come in. It does not mean it's expensive to operate because remember, we're creating a magnetic field. We're not running an element to create the heat. And so creating the magnetic field is not expensive. And the magnetic field is what agitates the iron molecules. So importantly, I think induction is really, I think, very safe to use, very easy to clean, and a very accurate medium if you're prepared to take the time to learn a new medium of cooking. You will get the rewards of your patience if you take the time to learn induction because of the cleaning and the so much flexibility and accuracy of temperature control. The precision's unbelievable. So it
sounds to me then like you need to look for a model that's got a 32 amp for the lowest levels so that you can get it. So that's what you're looking for if you're going to buy.
Yeah, and those brands, again, all the similar names pop into our... Yeah, so it's going to be the Mueller, the Siemens. Siemens one's incredible. The Mueller ones are very good. The Neff one's very good. The Smeg ones are good. The AEG ones are good.
Oh, it's funny you've just said Smeg. So I was just about to say to you, Smeg hasn't crossed your lips this whole time, but it just did then.
Well, no, Smeg make incredible ovens. They really do. So the Smeg's made in Guastalla of northern Italy. Vittorio Bertazzoni, who's a very good friend of mine, is the third generation member of the family that founded Smeg. He is the... If Vittorio wanted to compare Smeg versus Miele, Bosch, Siemens, Neff, Gaggenau, Vittorio would clearly say the Smeg brand is not only beautiful, but we cook in it. And it's a real cook's oven, because the Italians will always be arguing that they are the best chefs in the world. And Vittorio is a very, very strong fan of the fact that he believes he's some of the finest cooking ovens on the planet. Having been through his factories, I would rate the quality of the Smeg right up there with the Bosch, the Siemens, the Neff, the Gaggenau's, the AEGs.
And the Ilve, because I'm sure that Ilve and Smeg would be fighting with each other, being Italians.
Well, yeah, they're very close to each other. One's in Modena, the other one's in Guastalla.
Okay, so because that's
pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay. But look, Smeg, sorry, the Ilve brand has always had a strength in upright cookers, and their range is broader, and their finish options are much more significant than the Smeg brand. So with Ilve, you've got all sorts of things available to you, whether you have induction on the top, combination of inductions. You can have French tops to cook on, which is those cast iron tops. So, Ilve has a heritage in upright cookers, and their depth and breadth of sizes, models, colours and shapes and combinations is endless. So, many of those products we sell, Frances, are special order models where that upright stove just becomes that centerpiece of the kitchen. It might be a really nice matte black stove with twin ovens, and it's got brass, antique brass knobs and handles on it. They're very stunning. So,
well, in true Italian style, the looks, I mean, you just have to look at their advertising campaign. It's all, very beautiful.
Absolutely. But the Smeg brand in hot plates and ovens, Frances, you are quite right. I haven't mentioned them, but I would never leave them out. They're a great product. And particularly...
I wasn't trying to pick you up. I was just curious more they're not in. So just one last thing on the induction. Another thing that my clients get a little bit worried about is how safe they are with kids. Now, I know that you take the pot off and it instantly turns off, but they're worried about their kids touching it, where with gas you can see the flame, so they can say, don't touch the flame. How does that work from a safety perspective with kids? Is it safe?
So to me, it's safety is one of the most paramount things to consider in any appliance, anything we do in the home. And for me, having brought kids up on induction hot plates, they were using, I think my son was first making his crepes on his own by about the age of 10. The only thing that gets hot on an induction hot plate is the pot or the pan itself. Of course, if you're boiling water inside the pot, the water becomes hot and dangerous to any child. The thing I love most about the flat piece of glass and any pot or pan sitting on it is it's a flat piece of glass. No matter where I put the pot, it can't tip. Now, of course, if I drag the pot off the front and it tips off the bench, well, that's going to be a problem. But whether it's gas or induction, that's not going to change. But the unevenness of a gas hot plate for pots and pans versus the flat nature of the induction, I think, is an advantage to have a nice flat surface.
Yeah, great.
Secondly, if I take the induction burner, if that's my burner, and I have my pot sitting on this, I can have my hands right next to the actual induction burner itself. There is no heat from 1 centimetre away from the base of the pot. There's no heat beyond that 1 centimetre radius. So hands can actually inadvertently get onto the top and be near the pot and even touch the side of the pot. And you're not going to have something that's too hot to touch. Unfortunately, the cast iron or the prongs of a normal gas hot plate the pot sits on, they are going to get much hotter because they're under a naked flame.
Yeah.
So if I was unlucky to get my hand into there, I actually think it's slightly more dangerous. And then the third thing is there's no naked flame.
Yeah, which is super safe, yeah.
Yeah, if I happen to have just accidentally, which I've done myself too many times, if I put my tea towel or paper towel too close, I've certainly burnt things over my years with a gas hot plate inadvertently because I wasn't watching, which is not unusual. So I find the safety, particularly with kids, and showing them how to use it, incredibly easy. So, Campbell at the age of 10, he just knew to go and get his normal fry pan. He'd make his crepe mixture. He'd then go and put his fry pan on the stove top. He'd turn it on. He'd go to number 7 because he knew every time it was just number 7.
Yeah.
And then he's got to, and yes, he was on a little step to get himself up to the right height on the bench. And there he is knowing what he's doing. And there's no heat other than the pan itself being hot. And I find that the safest.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good point. And also just around the numbers, actually. I mean, you were saying before, I just know the numbers. I think kids would really be good at remembering the numbers rather than, is that on a low heat or not? And just having the numbers, it's like, I know I do crepes on a 7, I do this on an 8 or whatever. It's my sausages are on this. So it's really good. Induction, hey, that's certainly a good argument for induction there, Rob. You've done a great job.
But I respect anyone who likes to use either medium, and I think the exciting thing for people who love gas is performance gas hot plates there's never been more of them than we have at the moment. Unfortunately 10 years ago, I think things were a bit for great gas hot plates. Today there's a really big range of great gas hot plates, and I mentioned the ASCO brand before. They've got this volcano gas burner. It has got the most incredible amount of performance and efficiency. If you go online and watch Adam Liao, who's the ASCO brand ambassador, he does the most incredible cooking on behalf of ASCO on the volcano burner by ASCO. So
serious.
Great name for it.
So there's obviously still a big demand for gas. So in terms of your sales, is it 50-50 or is it more down induction?
So Victoria is a state.
That's not a buying criteria. I'm just curious.
No, we are certainly very, very strong on induction. We would sell more induction than probably any other retailer in Australia because we truly believe all of our stores have got great quality gas hot plates and electric hot plates connected, the induction. Yeah. So people can actually try out both gas and electric and see which one they like. We do tend to find we sell probably a 50-50 mix, I would say, between gas and electric. Now, bearing in mind that Victoria is about 85% gas as a state, that's a pretty big swing towards the induction.
Yeah, that's huge. That is really big. Wow. Okay. All right. The other really big one is Rangehoods. And I know we spoke a little bit offline and we're completely aligned with our branding on Rangehoods. But so often I have clients just go and get a Rangehood that's the same brand as their stove because they think it all has to match. And actually, that's a really interesting point about all the appliances. You said before, right at the start, you've got to buy something that suits your functionality. But I find so many people just have everything the same brand because they want it all to be the same. And I'm completely against that myself. I'm guessing you are as well. It's not then working around functionality. But I think because it's not something that I just find that Rangehoods are a really big afterthought. It's like, oh, yeah, I've got the Miele stove, so I'm going to get the Miele Rangehood. And yet they're not looking at the criteria of what makes a good Rangehood. They just think because the brand's there, it's going to be good. So tell me about the buying criteria. And I specifically also want to talk about the, the air change per cubic metre and the measurement. So what makes a good Rangehood and what's the good criteria to look at?
So again, we're always looking at air movement. I think you've got to start that, that performance value that we look for in a Rangehood when we're selecting them is trying to find out how much air they move. So a cheap Rangehood, that we would have bought in the 80s and 90s was moving 250 to 300, maybe 400 if it was a really good one, cubic meters per hour. Mm-hmm. A quality Rangehood is going to kick off at around 700 and better ones will even do 900. And then specialty brands of Rangehood, Frances, will do, if you buy a twin motor version, will do 1800 cubic meters per hour. And if you're to buy a 3-motor because you're putting it over a, indoor barbecue or something with a huge cooking area with major wok burners, we can buy 3-motor Rangehoods that are moving 2,700 cubic meters per hour.
Amazing.
So bearing in mind that a pool Rangehood is only moving 2,270, I can buy a Rangehood 10 times more powerful than that. So suction's everything, but of course we've got to be, we've got to buy the right one to suit our needs. There's no point, if you only simmer and casserole, there's no point, putting some 3-motor Rangehood above your cooktop if you're only, simmering and casserole.
And I suppose there's a lot of other things with regards to Rangehoods as well as, are they then, when you've got your canopy style versus your built-in, the pull-out ones, can they do the same performance or are the canopy ones, I think that's the other perception is the canopy ones are going to be better, more effective. Is that true or? No.
So again, you're right back to your initial question, you were bang on asking it. What is the thing that helps us choose Rangehood? So before I get into style, the number one thing I'm buying a Rangehood for is to extract fats, odors, smoke, oils. So air movement is the same whether it's a canopy, whether it's a slide out, whether it's an undercovered variant, it doesn't matter, or even one of those cheap old ones that had the visor on the front you used to lift up that Blanco made in the 90s.
Oh God,
they were terrible.
I don't think I've seen one of those for centuries.
They were pretty ordinary. So, the cheap old Robin Hoods and those sort of things, but every one of them has a air movement value in the specification sheet. So that's where I start to look. Now, if I'm looking to just stew, casserole, and not create lots of, sort of airborne fats and oils, then a Ranger that moves sort of 400 or 500 cubic meters per hour will be fantastic. But the minute I start frying, the minute I start, boiling water, big pots of pasta, even, doing the Crusoe pan with the steak in it, and all of a sudden I'm creating airborne vaporized fats and oils, then I want a Ranger that does things better. And of course, wok cooking, stir frying is the ultimate.
Yeah.
The minute I go to wok cooking, then I need something that's going to give me the ultimate performance. For me, air movement's one thing, and then of course noise is the next. So I want a Ranger that really delivers me high suction, but I want it to be quiet, so when I'm cooking, I actually turn it on and use it. There's sort of a trade-off on the old Rangers as well, that even if you did get it to maximum power and it did something for you, it was so bloody noisy you didn't want to leave it on anyway. So for me, better quality brands of Rangers are very important to choose. And as you were mentioning earlier, just because you bought a Bosch oven or a Miele oven or a Smeg oven or an Ilve oven doesn't mean you should necessarily buy a matching brand. Do your homework on, first of all, the type of Ranger you should be choosing, which is an undercovered, because you want to see, nice integrated joinery and across the top of your stovetop. And then you want to put the Ranger up into that joinery. That's fantastic. A slide out Ranger was very, very popular in the 90s and had that little 30mm trim. And I suppose in our minds, it sort of sounded and looked right to pull the trim towards us and giving us more coverage for the Ranger to work. Not necessary at all. That
I know, it's hard to get your head around the fact that
it's bloody useless. It doesn't do a thing. So, the slide out thing is really not needed. And then, of course, I might want to choose a canopy style Ranger because I want to create a really industrial, stylish look, that gives the appearance of almost, potentially a commercial style kitchen, which of course we can create. Or you might have seen, Frances, the Rangers that have become quite popular at the moment is those cylinder Rangers that sometimes we see a cylinder above a hot plate, or 2 cylinders, or I might see just a square box sitting above the hot plate. So I've got design things to consider. But no matter what my design is, I then need to make sure that my design is going to deliver me performance. So that's, and performance to my style of cooking. So the more I cook, the hotter I cook, the more airborne fats and oils that I do, or even maybe if I love doing, really rich curries, or I love cooking lots of seafood that can send the seafood odors through the home, then what is it I'm trying to manage, and how important is it to get rid of all of those smells will determine how much air movement we should have on the range hood. So again, in my head, before I go into a store and get told to do this or that, or not asked enough questions, think about your cooking style and think about how important it is to extract everything from the cooking. My opinion will always be, the more I remove, that means I don't have fat deposits on my cupboards. I don't have smells wafting into the rest of the house, getting into my drapes or whatever. So the more minimizing I can do of smells and odors, the better.
And sorry, keep going.
And then, of course, that then leads us to, if I've made all of these assessments and I bought, no matter what brand of cooking appliances I bought, there are 2 or 3 brands of range hoods that have only ever done one thing, and that's build great range hoods. So I quite like using, specialty brands because they've developed a range of products that suit nearly every application. And, you and I have a very favoured brand that I would mention, which is a brand of range hoods made in Melbourne. And John Keating has been manufacturing range hoods all of his life and founded the Cosway range hood company. John is 80 today. He's still a really passionate industry person, but he builds a range hood that will suit any application, no matter how hard it is to duct it, no matter where it's going to be installed. He has a range hood that will absolutely suit any application. And I think you'll find businesses like us and people like us, we love using his brand, for example, because it's our go-to for anything. If I want a budget range hood, and I'm being a little bit presumptuous to say that $900 for a range hood is cheap, but it's such an important part of any kitchen to get right, is good quality suction with low noise and good quality lighting. I think it's crazy not to invest $900 or so in a quality range hood. Now,
I think the other really key thing that leads to that too is, and I think because it's not this, you can't see all the fancy gizmos on my fridge, or you can, that they spend more money on their fridge. But because we are living in open plan living these days, it's not as though you can close the kitchen door and get rid of the smells or get rid of the noise. it's in your living room, it's in the dining room, and more often than not, people will be watching TV when you're cooking. Oh, it's like, put the range hood away, it's too noisy, turn it off. So I think it's really important, because of our livability in this open plan, it's even more of a reason to invest in one that's really going to work.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with you, Frances. And I think that's what sees us, across the 3 different brands, especially range hoods, and there's Cosway range hoods. Sirius is a beautiful company from Italy that make a fantastic range hood. And I've had the great pleasure of being through their factories, and the second generation of Bruno's families now in the company, which is great, both his daughter and his son. And there's Falmac, who also make a really nice Italian specialty range hood. But the heavy lifting is really done by Cosway and Sirius, in my opinion. And Cosway has a solution like no other range hood manufacturer for everything. They even allow us, Frances, I'm sure you're aware, to custom build models to suit certain widths and certain applications. Yeah. And we do many special orders to suit customers' requirements, because, to your point, the open plan living and the livability of the kitchen and the friendly usability of the kitchen means that the quieter the range hood performs, and the level of suction that ensures that I never see or smell fats, odours, smokes and oils in my house. People are really prioritising to get better quality range hoods, and we're seeing it a key part of design today in any kitchen that, it tends to be a Cosway range hood. And of course, they make them in 50 centimetres wide, 80 centimetres wide, 120 centimetres wide, 150 centimetres wide. And if we need to, like the one in our new Preston showroom, they've made one 6 metres wide to suit our demonstration kitchen area.
That's amazing. The other thing that I find with Cosway, because they're so passionate about making a good quality product, it must be installed by someone that they install, as in that they are qualified Cosway installers, or the warranty's void. They must use you must be able to use the special ducting, which is fixed rather than that flexible ducting. My understanding is that with that flexible ducting, you're never going to get a decent extraction out, because there's just too many curves and everything else. So when it's fixed and it's so wide, and you can have it on the flat, or you can have it in the other direction, that you can really they can really control how much suction is coming out. And that's why if it's not installed the right way, we're not going to give you a warranty. Right.
So, Frances, we see with the minimum measurement of a Cosway duct is it's about 230 by 350. It's about the size of a house brick. That's the outlet on the top of their range hood. And many other brands constrict down to a 110 outlet on the top of the range hood.
Flexi pipe.
Yeah, which is choking the airflow, causing air friction that creates noise. So Cosway have removed noise from their range hoods by making the aperture much larger. And then, of course, they've allowed their bigger German motor to deliver the airflow through that larger pipe with much more ease. So they get great quality air movement and low noise because of the size of the vent. Unfortunately, we do see some shortcuts taken by some plumbers. And I think it's very, very important for your viewers to be aware of the fact that, as you said, when you buy a Cosway range hood, you must buy Cosway ducting, because you don't want to choke this beautiful big aperture into this small outlet. It won't work. Yeah. So the reason why you have to have Cosway range hood ducting is because it's the only thing that makes it work. And you want your range hood to work. You bought this beautiful piece of machinery to deliver great suction and low noise, and then you've got to put the right piece of ducting to suit it on there. So if you're doing a more low-cost installation, Frances, I think brands like Bosch and Miele and Smeg do have some range hoods that, where I'm not looking for crazy levels of air movement, they can really package up quite nicely. And even some of the slide-out range hoods, from the Bosch brand, it's sort of $450. If I'm just buying a, sort of $1,000 oven, a nice $600 gas pipe, sort of $400 or $500 slide out range hood is still very, very good suction, good quality filters, and a nice size aperture, so I'm not too noisy. But the minute I'm looking for the ultimate in performance, then there's only one brand for me, and that's Cosway range hoods.
Yeah, and I'm the same. So we are so aligned on that one. Yep. And so what are your thoughts on I call them extract down, like your borers? Yep. That's becoming really popular, particularly in apartments, or when you've got the cooktop on the island bench, which I try and avoid from a design perspective. Yep. And you've also got then the ranges that are built into the ceiling. So just walk me through some of because they're obviously a lot more expensive, particularly the borers to duct down.
So ceiling cassettes and then downdraft ventilators in your benchtop really play into your field, which is, creating ultimate design spaces. And when you've got beautiful views and you don't want to have an island range hood maybe hanging over your benchtop, interrupting the views, or there's reasons why you want a nice clean wall, potentially behind a hot plate. The design reasons, I think, are what led, say, a brand like Bora and therefore Miele, who probably followed the Bora initiative. That integrated downdraft, first of all, on the Bora hot plate is there, so you can really have unrestricted potentially ventilation and still have all the headspace above your hot plate available, and not have a range hood sitting above it, particularly in island benches where views or in front of windows where there's views. It's a really nice application to consider. So Bora, the integrated ventilation is superb, very, very powerful, and it can go on top of a slab because it does recirculating. So an existing slab, that is, or if I'm constructing a home, I could actually build the ventilation into the slab and still carry that away to an external area. So Bora, great brand. But also you've seen the telescopic downdrafts, I would have assume as well.
Yeah.
Again, Sirius as a company is sort of one of the most famous ones for that. And even Gag now have one as well. But that sort of telescopic downdraft, is 900 wide, and the actual the range hood comes up out of the bench, and then you see the filter area sitting behind your hot plate. Again, handy if we're trying to maximise views out a window or create more space in an island bench, instead of just having that old school style of island canopy that was quite popular in the 80s and 90s in those sort of island bench applications. And then, of course, I think the installation of those ceiling cassettes is sort of the final piece of, again, giving you another range hood that can be flush mounted against the ceiling. And Cosway and Sirius both have the cassettes.
Yeah.
So that I've got this ability not to have the room interrupted, particularly where I prefer to have my hot plate on the island bench, not against the wall. Ventilation is a crucial thing to achieve, and so the ability to get nice and flat right up against the ceiling, that still gives you the opportunity to remove all the smoke, fats, odours and oils from the room, because you're choosing a performance brand, which would be either Cosway or Sirius. Those ranges do an exceptional job above an island bench. And
it is totally streamlined, but it is budget as well. I mean, you're paying for that aesthetic, there's no doubt. Yeah. So you believe then that the extraction of the likes of Bora, the draft down, is still really, really effective?
They have Willie, who's the founder of Bora. He really was passionate about creating something that actually worked.
It's German, so generally, if it's German, it works.
Right. No, it's a really good product, and he's also got the opportunity of buying 2 burner gases, wok burners, teppanyaki plates, induction hot plates. So he's got a really incredible series of products to consider for that. Again, slimline benchtop and no visible ventilation.
Yeah, and I mean, it is incredible to watch just how it just extracts it all down. It's just like this. It's almost like a space thing. You got all this air's going everywhere. Yeah, but I suppose listeners also need to know, though, it does take up space in the cabinetry underneath. So
absolutely, great point.
It does take up space. It's not as though it's going to be seamless. And it's a bit like having a Billy tap. It will take up cabinetry space as well. So if that's a premium, it might not be a solution, and maybe in the ceiling is going to be a better option if budget allows.
Yeah, and look, again, both of those, whether I look at a Bora or even the Miele or the other brands that have this integrated downdraft, but I think they're probably two worthy brands to consider. Check out in a showroom where the ventilation is going, just to make sure you can see how much room it takes up under the bench. Some brands do it better than others, Frances, and how they manage the removal of the airflow. So it can be minimised by some brands having clever ideas on the ducting solutions.
Yeah, and that's good advice as well. So I suppose the last one I want to cover off is for those homes, because we are getting more and more into passive style homes or homes that are air sealed, and so you can't duct out. And this is something that I've had to talk to my clients a lot who are building air sealed houses. They're not aware that, we're just going to get a normal range hood. It's like, no, you completely defeat the whole purpose of having an air sealed house. And I mean, I went through this whole process myself when we built. So talk to me then around the options available for when you're not able to extract out because you are having an air sealed house, or you're in an apartment you can't extract out. What are some of the options available?
So I mean, Cosway as a brand is a notable brand that has their plasma technology, and I think more importantly, without fancy words, an activated filter is a filter where there's an electrical current going to the filtration system that captures the fat oils as they move through the filtration system, and that activated filter then reduces and changes the molecular structure of the fats and the carbons that come through, and it means that the filtration system is actively, reducing it back to more like a charcoal finish by the time it's done. So you get no odors coming through, no fats, no smoke passing through the filters, and the lifespan of, say, the Quasair plasma filter, the cartridge needs to be changed over about once every 5 years. But it's unlike a normal mesh filter or a cloth filter that gets clogged up. These, because they're active filters where there's an electric current managing the fats and oils that gather inside the filter and then reducing them down using electrical current. These are filters that last a lot longer before they become sort of clogged with the fats and oils and the residues of filtration. So they're much more, I suppose, a suitable application for performance. And unlike charcoal or mesh or fibrous filtration, they don't get clogged anywhere near as fast, which means you've got a range that's still working at its full performance criteria and serving you in your household without having to change over the filtration system once every 3 or 6 months.
Yeah, well, I mean, once every 5 years is pretty palatable. But I'm sure that they come with a heavier price tag as well, the plasma filters.
Yeah, they really do. But bearing in mind, though, that there is then no ducting required, no proper installation of the range hood and carrying the airflow to outside. So the upfront cost is higher. And I think the plasma range hood technology from someone like Quasair is sort of closer to $3,000. Or it could be a tad more, but then there's no, having to sort of forage to the roof space and vent the thing to outside air, which could be, hundreds or even potentially over $1,000 worth of tradesperson experience to get that airflow to outside. So, because it's a recirculating type of format, very, very helpful. I would only use a non-plasma. I wouldn't use a non-plasma. I should change my language there. A non-plasma style of filter, which is a charcoal or a carbon. They clog up so fast, you might as well not have a range hood.
Yeah, and is the air then as clean as well? Like, I mean, when you think charcoal, it's like, oh, gee. So you are basically, if you're going to have a recirc, it's got to be plasma.
Correct. And if you're not going to have a recirc, then you need to use a Quasair, because the Quasair will be able to take it to outside. So you won't need recirculating. My range hood at home when I first moved in, it was a Miele undercovered range hood, 1,200 wide, a $4,500 range hood. I removed it straight away, and then a Quasair licensed installer came around to my house, inspected the situation, and then managed to weave in between all of the air conditioning ducts, the airflow of the Quasair range hood 4.5 meters away to the outside wall, and ventilated my twin motor Quasair range hood above my Miele hot plate perfectly. Now, that was after another brand had been installed there, and then we had to get another. I got a specialist Quasair range hood around to rectify the situation, so I got proper air extraction.
Yeah. I mean, but as you said right at the start, Quasair, that's all they do. And they're passionate about just extracting air. So they're obviously going to have solutions that may not necessarily be the case with companies that are also interested in a whole lot of other things.
Yeah.
I mean, I have, as I said to you offline, I do have a plasma. It is a Quasair, and it's fantastic. We're still yet to change our filter, so it's certainly lasted, and so it's great. But it was really new then when we got it. I think we were one of the first in Victoria to get it. It was that new.
Yeah.
But
an old industry friend of mine, when they were looking at prototypes of these, Frances, 12 years ago, he took one of the prototypes as they were just trying to assess how it was going to work. It was a Quasair one. His is 11 years old. It's a long time ago that they were assessing the prototypes, well before they introduced it to market.
Yeah.
He still hasn't changed his filters. And it's
still really? Oh, maybe I'll get another 5 years out of it. Awesome.
You never know.
You never know. But anyway, I think the message here is, in your open living, it's just so worth spending the money on getting something that is not going to smell and is going to be quiet. Like we're talking with regards to dishwashers, there's nothing worse than trying to watch a TV show and it's like, I can't put the dishwasher on because it's going to be so noisy. It's so annoying. Correct. So these are the sorts of livability things that people need to consider as well.
Yeah. And we spend so much time on, sometimes we actually breeze through the selection of ovens and cooktops, and then the range hood and designing the filtration system and the actual ventilation, the ducting pieces to make sure the job's done properly can sometimes be the most intricate part of the actual kitchen selection itself, because it is just so important.
But also, it needs to really be done at floor plan stage so that if it does need to go, well, more often than not, if it's ducting out, it needs to be considered with the architect how that's going to duct out. And that's where Cosway actually, if we're talking about Cosway, they need to be involved. You might need a bulkhead installed. We had to get a bulkhead just so that we had a spot for the plasma filter to go, the actual system, because it wasn't ducting out. So again, you need to do this stuff early on. Don't leave it to when you're moving in, which is when so many people choose their appliances. The knock-on effect is so big.
I'll give you a classic example of a kitchen I renovated in my first home in Murrumbina, Frances. What I did was I built a stud wall out and then plastered over that stud wall. It was an internal brick wall. And what that stud wall did, Cosway make a ducting system that sits inside stud wall. So I installed a Cosway Rangehood on the wall and then had the ducting come up inside the stud wall, running up against the brick wall and into the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then there was no interruption to the sight lines of the cornice.
Yeah.
My cupboards didn't go full height. So there was no interruption to the cornice. It was all in behind the stud wall. So, if you do as you say, take time at the start at planning stage to think about your rangehood. You'll be just so delighted with the end result, because before your works are done, the rangehood can be designed in, and the actual the importance of the ducting work can be designed into the installation.
Absolutely. And as we were talking about earlier, when we're talking about Cosway, it's all custom. They'll come out and once they know they'll look at your floor plans and say, this is the ducting you need. This is how much you need. This is the size it is. It makes such a difference. So I think we're totally all over Cosway. But they're Australian. So, it's just tick, tick, tick on all round on Cosway. So that's such good advice around Rangehoods. So the very last thing I wanted to touch base on was other appliances, things like built-in coffee makers. What are the other things that are coming into the market, or other things that you find consumers are really keen on in terms of appliances they might want to consider for their kitchens?
There's no doubt coffee machines are of interest, and the automatic style of coffee machine suits itself best to be one that can be made part of sort of your oven, combi steamer block, or installed separately somewhere else in the kitchen, away from the appliances, closer to the fridge, depending on how much room is available. And certainly brands like Miele have some really beautiful built-in or integrated style of coffee machines that were worth considering.
Are they good enough for the Melbourne coffee connoisseur, Rob?
They are.
They are?
The new model. Yeah, you know what? The new model from Miele allows you to have 3 different beans installed in the machine, and you choose which bean you like.
Oh, that's pretty good, but they've got to make a good crema.
Yes, they do, exactly. Well, this machine is their latest model they've just released as part of the Generation 7000. It's probably the most Melbourne-proof coffee machine that Miele's ever released. You do pay for the privilege, Frances. I'm
sure you do.
It's not a cheap machine. And again, I would declare my own interests here. I love a benchtop machine. So I use a benchtop machine, which is manual, and I use a benchtop grinder, which is manual, because I'm just old school in that
Same.
sense. And I do love the whole process of grinding and pressing and fiddling and diddling with my machine and making a giant mess in the kitchen. At the end of the day, that's my bent. But the automated machines, certainly that particular one from Miele is just an exquisite machine. They've got a range of 2 or 3 different machines to consider, and right up to the top of the range one, which has got 3 different bean hoppers, so you can have the house blend as well as 2 specialty blends inside the machine.
And so what sort of price point are we looking at for a built-in coffee machine, just roughly?
Depending on the brand, anywhere between sort of 4,000 and 10,000.
Yeah, so you got to really want... And
that last Miele example was...
the closer to the 10. And so what other gadgets and appliances are people looking at for their kitchens?
I think one that I think you might... I'm not sure if you're aware of it. It's a little bit newer to Australia. It's a brand of hot plates called Pitt. And the Pitt cooktops... actually not something that you would normally do a cutout in your stone and install the hot plate in. In the case of the Pitt one, we drill a hole that enables the burner to go through, and then we mount the burner system onto the stone. So Pitt as a hot plate enables the continuity of the stone, and whether that's Caesar stone, whether it's Decton, any of the man-made products, doesn't matter. The radiant heat generated by your pot sitting on there. It has obviously a shield that sits there beneath the pot, but the overflow heat to the benchtop never exceeds 40 degrees Celsius. So it's been approved for use in Australia on man-made, prefabricated benchtop like a Caesar stone and Decton and others and those, and of course any natural stone. This is approved for use. So when you have a look at PITT, it's a really extraordinary hot plate, very design orientated, because you're not cutting out all of your stone.
It would just be seamless.
Yeah, so
even more than an induction benchtop would be.
It's absolutely unbelievable. So,
that's incredible with reconstituted stone, though, because of the resin. That's normally why we can't have it as a splashback with gas.
Correct.
And so, is that a gas top? Are those burners? What are the burners?
Yeah, they're gas.
That's incredible.
So it has a heat shield that manages temperature, so that there's no chance of the actual burners taking the benchtop beyond 40 degrees Celsius. When it's installed, you create a small hole in the surface of your benchtop, and then you're fastening the underside and then the top together. But the medium, being the hot plate, benchtop material, runs all the way through no matter what. And I've got a choice of 1 burner, 2 burner, 3 burner, 4 burner, 5 burner variations.
Awesome.
And so I can have a crescent shape. I can have 5 staggered on the benchtop, and I can have 4 in a row. There's all sorts of configurations that you get to play with. But it is literally, it turns the benchtop material into the surface of the hot plate, basically. Awesome. It's quite cool.
I love it. Yeah, and where's that from?
It's from the Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Michael, who's the founder of that business, it's only a 12 or 14-year-old business. Michael was out in Australia releasing the brand to us just over 18 months ago, and we're very, very proud to sell it. It's going really, really well. Again, where you just don't want to see anything on the surface, and all you've got is just this burner penetrating the surface, and that's it. When we were at the last time I travelled out of Australia was at the Eurocachina trade fair.
I was going to say Milan.
And it was, there was about all of the top kitchen companies all had the PITT cooktop installed into their bench tops. It was amazing. Stainless steel ones, Decton, Caesar stones, everything.
Yeah, we're big on Decton. So, and starting at what sort of price?
A couple of thousand a burner. So if you end up with sort of 3 burners, you'd be around the 6,000 mark.
Yeah, okay.
It's very designer orientated and very seamless, in its design. Not entry level by any means, but when you're really sort of going out on a limb and putting a beautiful benchtop surface, it could be just that extra couple of $1,000s that could be worth investing to have this really seamless installation.
But I'm also thinking, again, in apartments where also benchtop is critical, and that whole aesthetic of keeping it as clean as possible.
Correct.
And you're having the burns in the island bench, I can see that is just going to have a completely different aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've got the budget for that, then that just sounds ideal. I've already thought of an application already. That sounds awesome. And
when you go to the website, you really enjoy some of the imagery.
Yeah, and also it's Dutch. It's going to play to my heart anyway. So. And they're good. They're like the Germans. They've got awesome design, and they're used to living in small places, so they appreciate that sort of stuff. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
Any other new things that we should be aware of, or what's big with consumers?
Look, what's big with consumers is when you take the time to really slow things down and ask proper questions and think about what you're doing in your kitchen. And getting stuff that makes a difference to what you do at home. I think that's where we see the most important thing. And you would have heard both you and I think one of the cornerstones of all the conversations it appears you and I both have, which I love, is understanding individuals for what they do and respecting what they want to achieve from their space and also from their appliances is so paramount. So we have so many amazing technologies, but so many of them I would say there's no point having that. You're never going to use it. So
and don't worry about what the Joneses are doing. If you're not going to use it, spend your money elsewhere. Yeah.
But I'll give you another wish list one. You would have probably come across the Sub-Zero fridges. They have the ultimate in I suppose food preservation. I think we'll see this technology potentially come into other brands over time. But fruit and veg, as they're aging, some things absorb ethylene gas and others emit ethylene gas. The emitting of the ethylene gas causes the other things to ripen faster. So the classic of the bananas emitting ethylene gas next to your avocado, and off it goes, and it ripens so fast. So the ethylene filtration system in a sub-zero fridge is then also combined with the humidity compartments of drier humidity for some fruit and veg, or a more moist environment for some fruit and veg. So remove ethylene, have true humidity and dry zones to create a much longer lifespan for your fruit and veg. So, yes, a sub-zero refrigerator is a real luxury item because, they're sort of $17,000 and beyond. And I don't mention it for that case. More so, I think just this fruit and veg management system that they've developed is quite incredible. I really believe we'll see that come through over the next decade as a real thing that comes into refrigeration, at potentially at much more cost-effective levels. And of course, BioFresh from brands like Liebherr and Miele is already sort of heading into that direction. So food preservation in fridges is pretty cool. Obviously, as every brand is sort of moving on, we're seeing steam cooking integrated into more things. Miele introduced a new technology into their ovens at a trade fair 2 years ago, and they released this product called the Dialogue Oven. And instead of using microwaves, it uses electromagnetic waves. And those waves are very different to microwaves. They can actually, microwaves hit things and then bounce off. The actual electromagnetic waves can go right through into the center of foods. And so they showed us demonstrations of wrapping up, imagine carving out a large block of ice, that's, about the size of half a dozen house bricks. They carved out the inside of that, and then they put some deer inside that classic German dish. And then they put it inside the oven with the ice block on top as well. So the deer was completely sealed inside the ice, but the electromagnetic waves penetrated the ice, came through, cooked the deer perfectly to medium rare, and it was just an amazing thing to watch.
That's amazing.
So the technology came from medical, and I believe this electromagnetic waves have been used in really keeping donor organs at the perfect temperature to then allow them to, I suppose, maintain in a state of readiness for transplant for the longest possible period. And they've taken that technology from medical and applied it to cooking appliance.
There is a lot of cross technology sharing in lots of different areas, actually, but it's great when it can be used in other ways. So
unfortunately, at its infancy, always new technology is at its most expensive. So it's a $15,000 oven. Yeah. But it shows that down the track, as it becomes more mass produced and mass available, the pricing of that could become much more affordable. Yeah.
It's like the technology in new cars and what's coming out of Europe, and then it'll become your really common brand cars. It's just always takes time. So
what I love the most, though, I think, is that appliances today, yes, there's lots of gadgets available, but I think the simple things are being done better. And I think keeping a focus on keeping it simple, keeping it safe, keeping it a product that's going to be nice and easy to clean, all of those type of motivations, and then particularly making sure it does what it needs, what you need it to do. I think if you've got clarity around your shopping list and clarity around how you use things at home and what sort of benefits are going to be important in your lifestyle that delivers you time saving, efficiencies, or other benefits in the household, I think they all become important considerations before you go and start looking.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think for listeners out there, you've heard it time and time again from us, is just work out what you need, work out what you use, work out how you cook, work out how you store your foods and what sort of foods that you store. And that's going to enable you to make the right decisions. At the absolute least, ask the right questions of the people on the floor. And if you're not getting the right answer, you need to go elsewhere. But I know that, with E&S, you guys are very good at having very well-trained staff that can ask the right questions. And I think that that's really important.
And I think, Frances, too, you had such an important point. All around Australia, there are retailers that have got staff who are interested and passionate about what they do, and they take the time to go to supplier training to learn about the new products, so that when new innovations are relevant to the consumer, they can really speak to them with accuracy.
Yeah.
If you're not getting that, you need to walk out.
I agree. Absolutely agree. Look, that has just been amazing advice, Rob, and your passion just shines through. It's so awesome. And your knowledge is just off the scale. So, and when you're passionate about something, you want the knowledge. So it's just so obvious. I'm so grateful for your time today. It's just been absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. And for those listeners, where's the best place? I mean, you've got stores all over Victoria. Don't know if you can make you can always order online as well.
Absolutely, France. So we got the 9 stores in Melbourne, one of which is in the Geelong region, which at the moment is actually still open, but the other 8 stores are currently closed. But I think we'll see that change shortly as we're suppressing the virus really well in Victoria. We're available 24/7 online, and between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. 7 days a week. I've got a live chat crew that are there answering questions all the time. So you can just hop onto our website, a little thing will pop up, and then a real person, not a bot, not a computer, a real person is behind. A real person's behind that, offering all sorts of advice and recommendations.
Fantastic. That's awesome for people nationwide as well. And I know that your flagship store in Preston is where I send people because it's bigger than Ben-Hur.
Do you know, I've had the great pleasure of growing up in a beautiful family business, and for some crazy reason, I've always had a dream around what a retail store from an E&S point of view might eventually like, and Preston is the final completion of that absolute pinnacle of a dream. And the layout, the brands that are represented there, the operational kitchen, the things that are connected for you to touch, feel, use, listen to. It means that it allows us to really connect products with people so much better. It's an incredible space, so we're very proud of it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you again so much, Rob. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you.
Thanks, Frances.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of My Forever Home. If you're ready to renovate or build a new home and you need help to create a beautiful and functional forever home, you can book a chat with me directly at whitepebbleinteriors.com.au/chat. Have a great day.